Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So nice to be with you. Welcome back to Cantor Glaser. And this is Jules Ilian, who's our rabbinic intern, student rabbi. Jules Ilian, if you haven't met her, please, you have a couple more weeks to take her out for coffee or to have a conversation. And I'm sure that you will enjoy her as much as we've been enjoying her. Speaking of enjoyment, Tim, you want to come up here to light candles? I can't really call it a bima, and Marcy, okay.
That's right. What? No, it's okay. No, it's fine.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Asher Kishon B'tzivanu
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So it's Tim's birthday on Sunday, and he will be 93 years old. So we wish you happy birthday, and I'm glad you're getting an opportunity to spend time with family. We're so also honored and privileged that you want to share your birthday with us, and you come to bring light, not just here, but also you bring so much light into our lives, everyone's life, who you touch, the smile. You know, wherever I go, there's Tim Littman. You make it to everything. So we wish you a new year of health and growth and adventure and calm. How's that sound?
Calm and happy.
Does that work?
Right, yes.
All right, and good health. Happy birthday. We're going to Shachianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
One who nourished us and sustained us and who brought us to this very moment of celebration. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday.
Tim.
Thank you so much.
Continue on page 24 with Shalom Alechem. We welcome in the Shabbat messengers of peace.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, וימלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, וימלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
On page 13 from Psalm 96, Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, we sing a new song to God.
שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, מסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני, ומהולל מאוד, נורא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, מסרו מיום ליום ישועתו.
On page 16, at the top of the page, Zamru Ladonai B'chinor. This is from Psalm 98.
זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור, וכל זמרה. 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 זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור, וכל זמרה.
On page 20 is Lecha Dodi. Welcome in the Shabbat presence. We'll be singing together paragraphs 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to 9, let's rise as you're able, turn towards the door, and greet the Shabbat presence.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבוריך, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, בשם על תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי הם מקור הברכה נראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי בעורף קומי אורי 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 שדברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמונך המשגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Please use this opportunity that you're standing to wish one another Shabbat Shalom. Say hello if you haven't seen someone for some time.
Thank you, sweetheart.
On page 26, Chetzi Kaddish. 26. Turn to page 28. Please rise as you're able. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach sha'arim, uvitvuna meshana itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. The page, read together through, that's about 6 lines. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, we lie down, we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. Rejoice in your Torah forever.
כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, והם נהגי יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני
seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבת על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
On page 39, at the top of the page, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, and together, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands marching. Turn to page 40 and join in Micha Mocha.
Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, norat tehilot osefele, norat tehilot osefele. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, ונאמר כבד אדוני יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל.
On page 43, at the top of the page, we read together, "Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will."
Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo, ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Shalom, Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
Yishabeach is on page 253. Our ancestors understood nighttime to be a frightening time, a time when people get lonely or scared or feel particularly not well. And so that's why we get the Hashkiveni prayer. We ask God to spread over us a shelter of peace. If you're not feeling well, or if something sad has happened in your life, you can feel bad at any time of day. And so we've moved the Misha Berach to this point in the service where we have this idea of God's Sukkat Shalom, God's shelter of peace over us, protecting us when we're particularly vulnerable, when we're sick, of body or spirit, or if we're just looking for ways to make our lives better. So this blessing here in the middle of the page, the first paragraph of it that's for all of us. Then we'll pause to share the names of our family members, friends, those in need of healing. You can add names to the list, and then we're also aware there's so many others whose names we don't know who are also on this Shabbat in need of healing of spirit, healing of body. So we sing together at the middle paragraph on page 253.
Visheverach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
We hold in our hearts for healing Ellen Apple, Julie Arnheim, Peggy Boone, Alex Botkin, Jimmy Broff, Jerry Chesson, Chuck Davis, Eileen Davis, Joanne Mandel DeWitt, Amanda Goldstein, Daniel Harrison, Kate Can, Naum Kaplan, Al Camper, Eitan Klausner, Tony Linder, Sally Littman, Lois Michaels, Laura Marshak, Hal Mendlowitz, Ellen Newberg, Susan Rosen, Bud Roth, Charles Rosenblum, Cheryl Sachs Dowling, Rabbi Bert Schumann, Benjamin F. Siegel, Rabbi Jonathan Stein, David Wallach, Jonathan Wind, Kayla Wright, James J.H. Yee, Hinda Sarah Bat Chana Pearl, Yermatia Shulamit Bat Miriam, Chava Gitel Bat Toiba, Shlomo David Ben Tova. Other names for Misha Baruch tonight?
Mary Wood and President Line.
Nicole Sims, Joe Hamrock, and Patrick Whittle.
Gail Rose. Julie Waterman.
Continue with the second paragraph of Misha Baruch.
Visheverach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We turn back in our books to page 44, the top of the page, and sing together V'shamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ישמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
On page 46 is the opening meditation for the tefillah. We will do that together, and then we'll continue silently at your own pace through the rest of the tefillah, either what's on the page or the words in your own heart. And we'll join back together, page 62, and of course you may, please rise now, but you may be seated whenever you're comfortable.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufia yitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי, אדוני צורי וגואלי. אדוני צורי night urive goali. Go inside your heart, just be. Go inside your heart and see what it wants, what it needs, what it yearns when you breathe. Go inside your heart and see. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be kind, be true. May they be acceptable to you, O my rock, and my Redeemer.
I was recently watching a documentary entitled Breadline Kids in America. The documentary follows the lives of 3 children in different families navigating a cycle of homelessness. Each family, although they come from different places and what led them to become homeless is different, they all are facing similar struggles in their own way. Parents losing jobs unexpectedly, children going hungry, a lack of access to affordable housing, health insurance, childcare. These are the themes that for many of us are all too familiar. We've seen it on the news, perhaps we've experienced it in our own lives, especially with the rising cost of housing and food. Families are struggling. I was especially moved by the story of Jasmine and Johnny Davis and their family. Their family, prior to experiencing homelessness, owned a home improvement business that gave them a comfortable life. They had a nice home, different bedrooms for the children, and as Johnny pointed out, a TV large enough to watch the Super Bowl on. After the recession, they were left struggling. Eventually, they were forced out of their home and could no longer afford to pay their rent. When Jasmine and Johnny's father did find another job, their mother picked up side work whenever she could. The minimum wage paycheck that his father brought home just didn't cover the family expenses, nor did it include health insurance. The Davis family's life in the shelter is not easy. They must follow strict rules around chores, curfew, and other such things. They live under constant fear that they could get thrown out at any moment if there are too many rule violations. And yet, the fact that the family even has a spot in the shelter is something that they do not take for granted. The shelter they are staying in has a 2,000 family wait list. Without a spot in the shelter, they would have nowhere else to go. As Mrs. Davis describes their life, she says, "Having a family is hard. Maintaining a family is hard. Keeping us, her family, indoors is hard." Shelter life comes along with many other problems. The children are constantly getting sick because of the crowded conditions in which they live, causing them to miss school for frequent illness. It also means that their medical bills are continuing to add up with each bout of sickness that sends them to the ER, one of the only places that will see them with their state insurance. The shelter is old, and with it comes problems like mice. The Davis family does eventually get their own apartment through a transitional housing program with doors that can lock. It gives them privacy and a better quality of life. And yet, Even though it's an improvement, these changes bring about a whole set of new problems. Now the family does not have access to the free meals that the shelter had provided. They need to pay to fill their new home with the daily necessities that cost money, and food's expensive. The kids themselves need things as they grow up, things like shoes. Johnny, like any other teenager, wants what his peers have. He wants to fit in, to not feel othered, to play sports with his friends, which is something that could get Johnny the opportunity for a full-ride scholarship to college. Johnny talks about how his family, now that they're in transitional housing, have less disposable income than before. He cannot play high school football as he had hoped, which was his plan for the future, describing how his dreams are slowly fading away because they cannot afford the necessary expensive equipment to allow him to play the sport. It's jarring to reflect how much of Johnny's young life at only 14 years old has already been determined for him. And there are circumstances that Johnny has no control over. He didn't control that his father lost the business. He didn't control where they were living, the income. Mrs. Davis, reflecting on the state of their life, the challenges to save money, to feed her children, she said this: "I would think that at least everybody in America can have some food and housing. The poorest man, a place to sleep and food. And that it's not that way." In this week's Parsha, Balak, we read in part a story about Balaam, known amongst his people for his ability to give blessings and curses, who some modern day thinkers compare to a sorcerer of sorts. He was hired by Balak, the king of the Moabites, to put a curse on the Israelites. Through some divine intervention that I won't get into, instead of cursing the Israelites, Balaam gives them a blessing, the beginning of which may sound familiar. Ma tovu ochalecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. These words are one which we repeat regularly as a part of our liturgy. As I reflect upon them through my own 2024 lens, I cannot help to think about what it means to live in a tent today. No longer are tents the choice place to live. Instead, they are a last resort for people encountering homelessness. The United States Census Bureau reports that on a single night in 2023, roughly 653,100 people, or about 20 in every 10,000 people in the United States, were experiencing homelessness. 6 in 10 people were experiencing sheltered homelessness, that is, in an emergency shelter, transitional housing, or a safe haven program, while the remaining 4 in 10 were experiencing unsheltered homelessness in places not meant for human habitation. This number is one that's on the rise and likely will continue to rise as cost of living increases, wages remain stagnant, poor neighborhoods get gentrified, and the amount of affordable housing continues to decrease. As we heard from the story of the Davis family, homelessness is not a single issue, but a multifaceted problem. Each area of a person's life is impacted: their mental and physical health, their educational and job prospects, a person's legal status, their access to safe food. Kaylee, another child that the documentary follows, is living in a motel with her mother and brother. Although their local food bank has things like ground beef for the family, because there's nowhere to cook the food, they cannot get the meat. They cannot get their nutritional needs met, not because they don't have the food, but because they have no way of preparing. Kaylee's family also must give away their beloved dog Nala, as they're unable to stay in a motel with her. It's a heart-wrenching choice, as any pet owner can imagine, and I'm sure many of us can empathize as well, to have to decide, where can we live somewhere or keep our dog? Sarah, another child in the documentary, describes how she lives in a single room with her mother and her older sister, and there's constantly mildew on the walls from the shower and from when they run the stove. They mop it, but it just keeps coming back day after day. One can only imagine the lasting impact on her young lungs and what will happen to her when she gets older. Balaam describes the tents of the Israelites as good, but what does good really mean? The famous commentator Rashi suggests that he says this because they saw that the entrances of their tents were not exactly facing each other, meaning each family had their own space and privacy. Despite being in the wilderness, each person was granted that dignity. In exploring this further, we learn of a mitzvah that's brought up in a Beit Din response about encroaching on a neighbor's privacy, and it reads along the lines as follows. It is often neglected in our time, the mitzvah of visual trespassing. The Gemara devotes much attention to the subject, being of the tractate Bava Batra. It is especially important, this halakha, this teaching, this law, and we see it from Balaam citing this passage, that Balaam praises the Jewish people upon seeing their neighbors position their windows and entrances to their homes in a manner that protects their privacy from one another. How can we give people dignity and privacy if we cannot give them homes with doors to close and curtains to shut? Our tradition tells us not to let people suffer. In Leviticus 23, chapter 23, verse 22, we're instructed, "And when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap away the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger, for I am the eternal your God." And yet, according to Feeding America, over 44 million Americans go hungry, including 1 in 5 children. In Exodus chapter 22, verse 20, we are instructed, "You shall not wrong or oppress the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." And later in Deuteronomy chapter 10, we are told, "For the eternal your God is God supreme and Lord supreme. It is great, mighty, and awesome God who shows no favor and takes no bribes, but upholds the causes of the fatherless and the widow and loves the stranger, providing food and clothing. And you too must love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." And yet, so often we ignore the problems around us. According to the Allegheny County Department of Human Services, there are currently 1,026 individuals in Allegheny County experiencing homelessness, with CBS News reporting that 1 in 5 Pittsburghers are living below the poverty line. So, with all of the troubling information, one is left to ask, how can I help? To begin, we can approach others with kindness and empathy. We never know a person's whole story, what they experienced, the challenges that life has brought them. We can remember that it is far easier to become homeless than it is to break out of the cycle of homelessness and poverty. Being poor is expensive. When people cannot access a place to cook, they must buy fast food or shop in small quantities, which does not give them the opportunity to take advantage of discounts on foods like Whole Foods or Costco, or not Whole Foods, but Costco memberships and things like that. When someone has a monthly bus pass, they spend $97.50. If you cannot afford that monthly bus pass, twice a day, you're paying $275 per ride, which in total adds up to $165, $67.50 more than people who can afford the upfront cost of a monthly bus pass. In a year, that comes to $877.50. Even a reduced fare bus passes, which Pittsburgh does offer, are expensive, and only some people are eligible. We can give our time. If we are able, we can financially contribute to organizations that help support the needs of those in our community, volunteering at a soup kitchen, offering legal expertise if we have it, educational knowledge, so on and so forth. We all have our own abilities. Pittsburgh does have programs that support those in need, such as emergency housing services, services for those battling addiction, and food banks. However, as we all know, the the money allocated never gets quite far enough. So we can reach out to our representatives, call them, and remind them that it is our Jewish obligation to support those in need in our community. The lines following Matovu Chalecha Yaakov Mishkanotecha Yisrael are poetic and beautiful. They read, like palm groves that stretch out, like gardens beside a river, like aloes planted by Adonai, like cedars beside the water. Their boughs drip with moisture. Their roots have abundant water. Their ruler shall rise above Agag. Their sovereignty shall be exalted. This is the description of a flourishing and vibrant society. Water being the source of life, these metaphors bring up in mind security, beauty, health, and growth. This does not sound like a community that has been wandering the wilderness, but perhaps instead serves more as a prophetic wish for the future. It is one that we can all relate to desiring, one we should all strive for. So, as we enjoy the peace and rest that Shabbat brings us this week, let us not forget our neighbors who do not have this privilege. Let us work together to make the city a safer, more welcoming, and a good place for all to dwell. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom. We will continue now with Aleinu, which can be found on page 282. Please rise in body or spirit.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
We continue now with our Mourner's Kaddish, and tonight we are thinking especially of Elaine Leskold, Rabbi Fred Pomerantz, and Lou Averbach. We are also honoring the yahrzeit of Mildred F. Alexander, Minnie Apter, Morris Baker, Jack Bergerman, Samuel L. Bigler, Vernie B. Bittner, Marlene Brand, Myron Broff, Vladimir Cherkasky, Philip Freeberg, Ethel Friedman, William Glaser, Joseph Gross, Faye Gurrentz, Joyce Harris, Alice Harrison, Francie Hausman, Marshall Katz, Annette Cronick, Celia Mallet, Dr. Herbert L. Needleman, Clarissa Popkin, Dr. Alan Parker, Clarissa Popkin, Joseph Roth, Ronald Savitz, Jacob D. Schwartz, Eleanor Seed, Ben Shapiro, Morris Schratter, Edward Eddie Silverman, Rachel Bergstrauss, Seamus Tate, Agnes Viscount, Bernard Werner, Robin Wexler. We join together with the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Oh, I'm so sorry if there are any other names.
Any other names? Carol Jackson.
Nancy Hicks.
Thank you. We now join as a community of support with the Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 294. Yikal v'yikadash k'mei rabbah, v'alma tivrach yirtei v'yamlik machutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon u'chayei tochol Yisrael, v'adala uzman kari v'imur amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam U'Lamein Amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitfa'ar v'yitrumam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Kedusha B'Rihu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nekmata damiran v'yoma v'chidru. Amen. Yehi Shalom Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Yivru. Amen. Oseh Shalom b'dromav Hu Yaseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Yivru. Amen.
May the one who grants peace above grant peace to the mourners. Zikronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated. Announcements. Thank you all for joining us here this Shabbat. To note, on the 24th at 6:30, Craig Davis.
Yes, so 24th,
Craig Davis.
Yes, Craig Davis. We have our jazz garden party, I believe it is labeled. So the Craig Davis Jazz Ensemble. I'll be singing a couple of numbers. It's a fantastic, he's played at the Blue Note. He's a fantastic jazz pianist. It may storm, so in that case we'll be in Levy Hall. And then, do you want to continue?
I can continue, sure. We've got a joint service here with Sinai Temple this next Friday, the 26th, and there will also be a picnic. And then, and also, is it going to be a potluck? It is not a potluck. The 30th, there is a wine and cheese evening in the Biblical Garden for the under 30s. Under 30s?
20s, 30s.
20s, 30s. And then there's a Tisha B'Av event on the 13th of August.
Can I, sorry, not to overplug, but the Tisha B'Av event will be studying some of the music from the Liturgy of Lamentations. We're going to be performing with Don and some professional singers the Lamentations of Jeremiah by Thomas Tallis, which is a fantastic choral work. So please come along on Tuesday the 13th. It is the end of Tisha B'Av. We didn't want to overlap with the Tisha B'Av observance, so Tuesday the 13th. The choir will be singing, maybe they don't know that yet, but the choir is going to sing a couple of things too. Don't worry, it's easy. Thank you.
We will continue with the Kiddush on page 5. Is anyone... Do you have someone?
The Kiddush?
Shall we?
Totally good.
ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. צברי, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
We continue with Motzi, which can be found on page 302.
And then our closing song will be Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu.
On 253. 353.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם, סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם, סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם.
And Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Do you want to play this for Ona again?